Welcome to the broadcast again. Kirsten Kloss here in studio with Chris Hamilton. And Chris is again going to be interviewing our wonderful authors supplied to us by McGraw-Hill. Today with us through a Skype call is Yanik Silver. And Yanik, thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm excited.
So you want me to take over and talk about the book?
Take over from here, Chris.
I'd hold the book up. I do have a green screen behind me, so I don't know if it'll actually show up or not. How does it look, Kirsten?
It looks okay.
It's
slightly
good?
transparent.
Okay. Good. So I've got Yanik here on a Skype call, and his book Maverick Startup: 11 X Factors to Bootstrap From Zero to Six Figures and Beyond. A great book. I read it about a month ago, and then just did a quick zoom through last night as I was prepping for the interview questions. Now, Yanik, before we get going on this, we typically allow or let our authors tell people how to get a hold of you or find you or what kind of websites you might have. If you want to give a quick plug, please do, and then we'll jump into the interview.
Yeah, sure. My newest blog is maverickmba.com, and then of course, Maverick Startup is available. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, where other fine and probably not so fine books are available.
It's a fine book. We'll put it up again here. So I'm gonna list off the 11 X factors, and it's great. You have them on the back of the book. Can you see that, Yanik? I don't know if you can read those or not.
No,
little small there. So number 1 is the big idea. Number 2 is your vision. Number 3 is high margins and premium prices. Number 4 is get it out the door. Number 5 is test and improve. Number 6 is listen and shift. Number 7 is create zealots. Number 8 is what's next. Number 9 is tap your mastermind. And number 10 is create the fun. And the last one is number 11, create the impact. And obviously, I've just, if you're in the U.S., Cliff noted that. In Canada, Coles noted that. A quick condensed version of that. But the idea behind it, though, is you're literally kind of giving a guide as to people, how to get started in a business, or especially business online, I would imagine, as to ramp it up. So how did you come about writing the book, Yanik?
Well, I've always had people who have been bugging me for, talking about what I've done and how I've done it. So it really, kind of part of my journey really started, I guess, back in 2000 when I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning with this crazy idea for a website called Instant Sales Letters. And they're just literally fill-in-the-blank sales letter templates for any sort of business owner. And that really started the process where, and I have no technical skills, still don't, believe it or not. I still cannot put up my own website. And after a month, we made about $1,800, and then $3,400, and then $7,800, and then $9,600 month 4, and really quickly on track to do 6 figures. And that's when people were like, "Oh, how did you do that?" And that kind of led into this whole path of working with startups, working with people that have something to get out there and get it going. And it's really been refined now around this whole Maverick philosophy. Chris, I don't know if you can hold up that book really
sure,
tight
I'll hold it up
to the
again.
camera, maybe, because that one little symbol is on the backside is really kind of fundamental to the to what really my philosophy has changed over years. It's a lot of entrepreneurs are so focused on that one piece, which is just a dollar sign or whatever your currency is in your country. And I'm really about a little bit more of a holistic approach where you can combine getting to the next level in your business, making more money, but at the same time having more fun, creating more joy and happiness for who you work with and your customers and yourself, and then also creating more impact, hopefully globally, with your business. And that's where I get really excited, is that where those all mesh together.
It's interesting, as I say, as you read through the book and you start understanding more and more of it and stuff. I've been in your shoes as well as Kirsten's been in your shoes, starting up and doing companies, and I'm on probably about my 5th or 6th startup as well. One of the things that the step 1, the big idea, is there's a couple of things that I find a lot of people and especially I do the same thing. We work with entrepreneurs and stuff, and we also work with people that are coming straight out the gate with ideas. How would you tell people to come up with what you think would be a good idea to go after, or a good product to manufacture?
Yeah, the big idea is really, really important. That's one of those that you want to get right. And there's a couple kind of shortcuts that I think that a lot of people can use, and I got 5 different ways that you can do it. One of the easiest, that first project I mentioned, that instant sales letters, that big idea is the fish. So everyone's been taught, if you hand a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man a fish, you feed him for a lifetime. I don't know if I can cuss, but that's BS, basically. So it's pretty much total BS. People want the fish handed to them if they can.
Yeah.
And, so that's one of the ways of getting to the big idea. And I learned that way back when I actually used to work with cosmetic surgeons, and I would give them a pre-done ad or a pre-done newsletter or a report that they could use for liposuction or for laser resurfacing or something like that. And that was a little bonus that was on one of the products I sold, and that was our biggest seller. And so, I'm like, oh, okay, it made sense. And then I transformed that to when we use instant sales letters, and that's been a seller. That's been making, last year it dipped below 6 figures, but before that, for every year for 9 years, it made 6 figures every single year.
Wow.
Some years like $250,000, just a little $40 template at the time. So those were, that having that fish product is it works. Like, think about, there's these peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that Smucker's has. I forgot what they're called now, but they're literally just peanut butter and jelly smushed together, and you grab them out of the freezer, and then by the time your kids have lunch, it's thawed out and ready, uncrusted. And so that's a perfect fish product. It's like the parents don't have to think about it; they just stick it in their kids' lunch. So that's one of the ways of getting that big idea. The other thing is I always look around for what's already working in maybe a different marketplace that I want to go into, a different industry. And I see, what's the cool part of that we can maybe extrapolate and bring into what we're doing. And a lot of times you'll have more success taking something that's successful somewhere else and bringing it to a new marketplace. Mm-hmm. And that's another way of having a big idea, is becoming your own category. So look at Red Bull. The energy drink market is huge, and they were probably one of the first ones in there, I think. And they decided to do the little 10-ounce or 8-ounce cans, silver, a whole new look to it. And there's been other ones in there. So now, number 2s and number 3s like Rockstar and so forth, and Monster. But, Red Bull's still number 1. But look at 5 Hour Energy. They came in and owned the category because they were the new energy shot. And they also have, another part that I always think about for big ideas is they have a very specific benefit. So 5 Hour Energy, you're going to get 5 hours of energy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's really powerful. So that's another thing. If you can combine some of the big idea factors together, it makes it even better.
So it's go after the idea. One of the things actually that I also got from the book too is the fact that you kind of just don't spend a bucket load of cash to see if something works further on down the road. And I see this with so many entrepreneurs that create, like, Wrigley Field basically, and no one shows up, right? So it's like,
right.
What, I mean,
if you build it, they don't necessarily come, right, Chris?
Sorry, what's that?
I said if you build it, they won't necessarily come.
Exactly.
Yeah, the Field of Dreams concept. Yeah.
What's your take on that? I mean, I'm on the same philosophy. Is just try something. If it works, don't invest a lot of cash into it. But if it works and you see it working, then you can start putting some cash into this. Is that kind of the same idea you've got?
Totally the same idea. It's been getting a lot of traction, especially in Silicon Valley VC circles, where we've been doing it for a long time. And there's this whole lean startup philosophy that's been coming about where they talk about MVP, which is minimal viable product. Yep. And it's really interesting. So it's like, don't build this whole massive, if you can build software, don't build this massive software feature set. Don't build this massive product, but get something smaller out there, see what happens, even put up a landing page. Check your metrics on your landing page. See how many people are hitting the page. Buy a little bit of Facebook ads or Google AdWords traffic, and then see how many people are hitting the page based on the benefits you throw out there, and see if they're willing to even sign up. And so you can do a lot of different things out there. I really think it's like this amazing golden era that we're living in for entrepreneurship, because there's so many great tools to get out there. Like, it really takes pretty much a decent idea, hopefully a good idea, some gumption and some work behind it, and you can see what's going to happen. And there's a lot of cool tools, like for even like crowdfunding now, and crowdsourcing, all sorts of things. So you can decide, okay, I'm going to put together this idea, we're going to crowdsource it, and then maybe go to a site like Kickstarter or Indiegogo, where you can actually get people to, a lot of those sites are becoming almost like pre-order places, where right now there's been a lot of talk about this new watch that raised $10 million on Kickstarter, which is just crazy. So before they even manufactured a single a watch. They put it out there, had a video about this watch, and raised $10 million. Now, obviously, most people, most startups are not going to raise $10 million from their supporters like that. But maybe you need 5,000 or 10,000 or 20,000 in pre-orders to get you all excited.
Yeah.
Those are great platforms to check out, to put something out there.
That's a great idea. Have you ever seen, do you know Stephen Key? He's also McGraw-Hill. He did One Simple Idea. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Yeah. I've interviewed him before. I love his concepts on licensing.
Yeah, it was funny when you were saying that. It was just because we interviewed him about 5-6 months ago, and the philosophies are very similar. He takes a little bit of a different direction, right? Getting people to manufacture it for you, but I guess you can mash the two up and get them going, I guess, as well.
Yeah, so. And I've talked to him about it. Like Stephen and I had a conversation about the crowdfunding and that whole platform, because it really becomes this marketplace viability checker. Yeah, where you see what's rising up, what's not, and I'm like, those are the ideas that need to get licensed. He's like, yeah, and so we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah. The other thing too is step 2 is your vision. Is kind of where do you go? What do you do? It's the one thing I like about that is just kind of putting the wheels in motion, obviously, and trying to figure out where you want to go. Planning for success. Now, I'm going to ask you a question as an entrepreneur. When you first got out the gate, did you have a big vision, or was this kind of like a stumble that you went into? You go, oh, all of a sudden I'm becoming an entrepreneur. Now I got to think about what the heck I need to do, right? How did you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was so. Originally, if I was gonna, when I first got started, it was just like, wow, this sounds like a good idea. Let's throw this out there. Let's throw this out there. Let's throw this out there, and everything was band-aided together. And maybe as a first-time entrepreneur, you might have to go through that. Hopefully, some people won't have to go through that if they take some of that advice to heed about X Factor number 2 and the vision. That's really been something new, like with this new group of Maverick companies that I've been building. That vision's been really, really strong, and this has been the first time that I really sat down and I always had, like, when I first started, like instant sales letters, I had a little note in my notebook that said I wanted to sell it for $500,000 I identified a couple companies that I thought I might sell it to. And the funny thing is that I never would have sold it for that because it was worth a lot more to me. But it started me on this path, and I always find like our true success is almost like perpendicular to where we think we're going to go. So if I'm heading in this direction to try and sell my business for $500,000, what I thought, then over here, perpendicular was what became my next career, which is helping people, get their content out there and sell it. And but having that vision, like I said, is something new and I think really powerful. And I've learned this from 2 great mentors. One is Ari Weinswig, who has a group of companies called Zingerman's Community of Businesses that I've really learned a lot from. And then Cameron Harrell, who helped grow 1-800-GOT-JUNK to about $100 million without any debt or investors or anything like that. And it's really about, like you said, setting up that vision and creating that picture for what you want to see happen. The other thing that I get really excited about, especially in today's world, is that in that vision you can create meaning for the people that you work with and your partners and your vendors and your anyone that comes into contact with your business, your customers. If you have a big enough mission and vision, you can get people that really are sort of the unhirables or the people that are looking for more meaning in what they're doing. And that's where it gets really exciting. Like part of our Maverick mission for 2015 is actually to re-inspire 1 million entrepreneurs into this whole philosophy of that make more, have more fun, and give more.
I know we'll get to the give more at the end because that's your last chapter of the book, which I totally appreciate and understand and absolutely agree 100% with. By the way, when you were talking about just kind of the unintended success, page 82 of your book has the little diagram on it.
Yeah, nice, thanks.
Which is funny, but you know what? There's a lot of times, and I got to mention this, I see this with people, sometimes they don't see the forest through the trees when they see this stuff, right? They do not understand that they're marching towards this, understanding that they should be going this direction because you're seeing more and more success. And I mean, maybe you got to take to help people think about that or look at it in a different way instead of marching towards you should be, where you got to be a little bit more open-minded. What do you think people should look for in trying to find that unintended success?
Yeah, I think so going back to Silicon Valley, their big term that they're really throwing around right now is pivots, and where the idea is checking the business model to see where you're getting traction, where you're not. And if you look at even big companies like that were that became big successes, like Twitter. Twitter was a tiny little subsection of another piece of software that was a lot bigger featured, and they just used it internally just to say, hey, what are you doing right now?
Yeah.
And that tiny little thing blew up. So there's usually inside what you're doing, if you can take a few steps back and look at it a little bit more objectively, there's probably, you know, just like the 80-20 rule, there's always something that you're getting way more benefit results out of that's a tiny portion of what it is, whether it's whether it's what you do in your daily activities, whether it's what you're putting out in your company products. Just thinking about that 80-20 or 90-10 rule is really important. And then saying, okay, well, here's where we're getting a lot of traction. Our customers are really enjoying this piece of it. Why don't we go do more of that and see where that takes us? And sometimes it requires you to kill off projects that you might really like, but aren't, for whatever reason the marketplace is telling you that's not the right project at the time right now. Just sometimes you gotta be strong and be able to make those changes. Like we talked, Chris, you mentioned not bootstrapping. Mm-hmm. And one of the pitfalls a pitfall is actually having too much money. And I saw that with when I was building up this next group of companies. One of the first ones is called Maverick Business Adventures, where we took high-level entrepreneurs on these unique adventures combined with business and philanthropy. And the business model for it wasn't quite right. And I sunk, I'd say, about $400,000 into it because I was so passionate about it and what I really wanted to get it going. And the marketplace, I was seeing a little bit of traction, but not enough to really tell me that I should be spending that much money and hiring a lot of people I didn't need at that point. So, sometimes you gotta swallow that bitter pill and decide that you gotta make those transitions
and cut your losses.
Yeah, I had an example once where I was actually sitting in we were in the oil and gas world up here, and I was had a piece of software that I was using that we had created in my company, and I remember sitting with a CFO once, and we were trying to go after trying to find royalties off wells, and we showed this CFO a list of all his wells, and we said, "Oh, here's a whole bunch that aren't sitting on your master list, right?" And he went ballistic. And I finally realized after the fact is that if you don't have a master well list, you undervalue the value of your company, and they were getting set to sell their company. So it was right then and there I go, I'm doing the wrong thing. I should be creating these master well lists for all these companies. And it took off up until the time that oil went down to $40 a barrel, and then it went to hell in a handbag. But that's beside the point as well.
But yeah, I mean, that's a perfect example, right? Because your marketplace will tell you if you're open and you're actively listening in some way and seeing what they light up about, what they get excited about, what they're like, oh God, yeah, that's what I need, or that's or they're pissed off, and those emotions run high, and you can see that becomes something that you can be focused on, and mm-hmm. When you get it right, then it does take off, and then it's like turbo boost for what you're doing.
Exactly. Hey, the other thing too is we were talking about getting it out the door with the procrastination, right? And I've seen so many guys just sit and go like, yeah, we got to get it out, but it's analysis by paralysis, right? Waiting for that thing to be 100%. And yeah. Kirsten can attest to this. I'm Mr. Firestarter, right? I'll just start something, see if it works, and then just go, right? Yeah. And that doesn't even have to be anywhere near perfect before I go after it. And then, unfortunately, he has to pick the pieces up sometimes after the fact. But there's another thing. How do you coach people through the fact that they don't stall and don't wait, because there'll never be a perfect day?
Yeah, there really will never be a perfect day. I mean, you can be like, oh, I'll wait till the kids get older and leave, or I'll wait till I don't know. You can make 18 million excuses, and the problem is somebody else. I totally believe in almost like this universality of ideas, that somebody else is totally working on your idea right now. There's no question in my mind. Yep. Because the way it's set up really is ideas typically will be a little bit further along, a combination of different items. They might be because somebody opened the door to something else, which means that there's new possibilities for this, which means those ideas are pretty inevitable. And so the longer you're sitting around waiting and thinking that it's going to go out there, it's you might be missing out, and you miss out on first mover advantage. So I like to play tricks on myself, and one of the tricks I do is sometimes setting like false deadlines. So if it's a event driven kind of thing, if I stick that, I guess the flag in the sand or whatever to say, okay, this is when we're doing it, the stake in the ground, to say this is when it's happening, everything else lines up and has to happen. Like, when we started Maverick Business Adventures, we did a Baja racing trip in January, and part of the model was to have like a business icon there, and I had no idea who we were going to have there, and this is a really different business model around travel, and I have no travel experience or anything like that. I'm like, all right, screw it, I'm going to make this happen this date, and it forced you to ask, totally do it. We talked about something else before, Chris, about the kind of the pre-orders around using the Kickstarter Indiegogo platform. Mm-hmm. Having some cash on hand and having that positive feedback really helps too. That helps energize you to get it out and get it going. So if you can focus on a bit of the benefits and the sales copy and what it's going to be in the features and put it out there, then it'll automatically kind of push you forward that way, I think.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Well, it's interesting because I always find the problem I have more is like, I need an audience to try these things out. And, I discovered a site called Fiverr, and people come to me and they go, why are you on that site? You're not making any money on it. It's like, but it gets me a lot of buzz and it gets me a lot of feedback about my ideas. And yeah, it's almost like a beta testing site. Do you have any other ideas as far as that whole engagement? Like, how do you find that crowdsourcing environment of active and willing participants?
Well, the best way obviously is your own, right? If you can build your own group of community, your own community, people that have affinity for what you're doing, that like you and respect you and trust you. So that comes usually with good content. And almost no matter what kind of business or service you got, like I know a guy that sells pools, in-ground pools, in next state over from us, and he's used great content in order to make him the total authority on in-ground pools. And when he comes in, he's like, I'm not meeting with you just to meet with you and show you stuff. You can see all my content and read all the FAQs and all that stuff. If I come in, I'm selling you a pool. And so I think having that group of people that you can automatically talk to. So let's say he wanted to come up with an idea for a new lighting system around pools. Then he could just start going to his existing little group. It might even be a big group of people that read information about pools that he now has access to through his content. So that's number one, right? The best way is having your own group, and that be writing articles, having a blog presence, maybe a Facebook fan page, something that we start building up that group of people, and then you start asking them for their advice or throwing stuff out to them or telling them about a Kickstarter campaign that you have or whatever the case is. Another way is, if you can do it, to piggyback off somebody else who has that leverage or affinity, if possible. So that's one of the ways that one of the first questions I'm asking people when they're getting started is, what relationships do you have already, and who can you passively tap into that what you have is complementary to what they're doing. And so you can even who cares? Like, I'm all about the process, not the profits originally. So let's say you need to give up 85%, 90% of what your initial product is to get a first mover person to help put it out there. Do it.
Yep.
Even if you have to put 100%, doesn't matter necessarily. But you just want to see that feedback, and they're taking a chance too, because they don't know exactly what's going on. So you would reward them for taking that chance. And I guess the third way is just like you mentioned, Kirsten, around the marketplaces that are out there that you can kind of see what people are looking for, or seeing what you can throw out there that might get some interest. I mean, even like Craigslist is a platform. There's a lot of platforms out there that we can tap into. Fiverr, as you mentioned. There's probably a whole lot more. I mean, it depends how much work you would really want to put into it. But like the Amazon Kindle marketplace, you can pretty quickly put out content that way and see if anyone is interested in it. But so there's a lot of ways of doing it for sure.
Good. Thank you.
It's all good. I would take it from the approach to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, put an idea together, and just pray that it works there, Kirsten.
Oh, yeah.
That's the idea. That's the way you go about it.
Start an investment club.
Exactly. Hey, by the way, I'm looking at your website here, by the way, Yanik, and it's I see you have what was it? Ski in the mountains, or the heli-ski in Canada. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
So, by the way, as we are in Canada, anytime you feel like coming up here, we're more than happy to have you up here. I'm speaking on all behalf of all 36 million Canadians. You're more than welcome to come up here.
Awesome. Well, I'm a hockey fan, so I'll fit right in.
Yeah, I noticed that actually. You want your name engraved on a Stanley Cup, and you know, I don't know how your hockey career is, so you might have to actually go in as an owner or something like that. Right?
That's pretty much the only way I'm thinking that's going to happen.
Yeah, but it's a good goal to have actually. That's your list. Actually, your list is for those who haven't been there. I'm on internetlifestyle.com/blog, and Yanik's got his big list here, and they're actually very amusing. As you guys were talking, I was just looking. Host Saturday Night Live. You got some really good stuff on here, actually, and I see you've got some of the stuff crossed off. So it's actually really good that you've done some of this stuff. So now, sorry, back as my ADD kicked in there. A couple of things that I saw that I really thought were cool too. Step 5 and Step 6, which is or the X Factor 5 and X Factor 6, which is test and improve and listen and shift, which kind of go hand in hand a bit, right?
Yeah.
I think that's another thing that most entrepreneurs don't, it's funny because they're almost myopic in their approach. They this is my little baby. They built this better mousetrap, but they're not willing to take a look. And I know with the test and improve, you talk a bit about website, changing colors, changing placement of buttons. So I'm totally into that. I think that's the coolest thing to do that. But do you mind giving your take on just how to really what an entrepreneur should look at and testing and improving? What kind of guidelines or potential can you put forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's really so the whole process, at heart, I'm a direct marketer, where that means that we'll put an offer out there to a targeted group of people and see what happens, and being able to track and test return on investment. So, from a very, very low level kind of vantage point, I was working with one of my buddies who's a dentist, and just we're kicking around some ideas while we're playing volleyball, and he was like, the price of our hard goods now for silver for his fillings or something had gone up. I'm like, that's perfect. That's a great time to then send out a letter to your customer or your patients, telling them about the reason why this has happened, and we're gonna, if you want to schedule an appointment before this date, we'll let you prepay for your for whatever. I forgot what the procedure was, and he said he had his best month ever. Now, of course, if he was doing a little bit of testing or tracking around that, well, he was doing the tracking because he could see what that offer was. But if he was doing some testing, he might put out 2 different offers, where one might be that you don't have to pay for 12 months kind of thing, or pay over 12 months of payment type, versus pay in full for a discount. And then he could put out 2 letters to his patient database and see which one's better. So you can do it on a small scale. You can do it on a larger scale. The web has really created some great tools for us to be able to track what's going on. And you can drive yourself crazy with this. And I'm not really a numbers analytical person, so I'd rather have people that are really excited by it do that kind of stuff. But when you get into it, it gets really exciting. And you'll be amazed at the changes. Literally, so we start with the biggest elements. So on a page, it's going to be the first thing that people see, which would be your headline or whatever is your biggest benefit-laden thrust.
Yep.
So if you can put a few different headlines out there, see which one's going to work, and then of course you got to have what's your most important function of the site. So if it's to get an order, then we're going to be tracking what the conversion looks like. If it's going to be just to get an opt-in, we're going to be tracking what that conversion looks like. If it's going to be to get a like, we want to track that. But absolutely 100,000% changes in that headline are going to have direct impact changes to what actions people take, how long they stay on your page, and how they engage. And then even little stuff like, my friends have tested colors on their website and had dramatic effects, size and colors of their order now buttons and add to cart buttons. So every little thing has a process. So then you start looking at, okay, what are the other key elements? So if we're an online commerce business, then your shopping cart has a big effect on revenue because there's massive shopping cart abandon or massive order form abandon. So we start looking at what can we do. If we put a testimonial right next to the buy now button, does that help or decrease it? Believe it or not, sometimes it decreases stuff that you think is like an automatic lock-in. We're going to add more testimonials, and then I've seen that affected in a reverse way. So, just start thinking like that if you can, and even if it's on a small scale. And then there's lots of resources out there about what statistical variance, what statistical significance you need to make a good sized test. Like I was in just the other day, I spent time with my buddy who runs a company called Boardroom, and they mail about 50 million direct mail pieces a year. I'm like, God. And so their test panels are 25,000 mail pieces. I mean, that's a whole lot for most small entrepreneurs.
Yep.
But they need to be at a very, very high statistical significance that they are sure that what is testing is actually working and what's going to help them. So that's part of that listen and learn and shift process, like we talked about, the pivoting and seeing what's working in your business. But if we think about always constantly making our process, our sales page, our business better, then you got that continuous improvement, and you're only going to keep getting better and better, which leads to better bottom line results where we can then afford to buy customers at a better price point. So, really it comes down to what can we spend to acquire a customer.
It's amazing what little shifts can do on websites. I have a client right now that I was looking just at their Google Analytics, and they have one section. I don't know if you use Google Analytics on your site or if you use a higher powerful tool. I don't know what one you use, but on the analytics page, there's one screenshot you can get where you see where people are clicking through on your links and what percentage they're doing on the page. And I found one where these guys had a financing option that was so far down on the page, but it was getting clicked 23% of the time. Actually between 6 and 23% of the time. So I'm going to average about 15% on high ticket items for financing. And their high ticket items are like $10,000, $15,000, and people were looking for financing. And this thing was getting, no word of a lie, clicked. I'll bet you 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 times a year, but it wasn't taking anywhere. It wasn't telling people what they want. So we just fixed that one little thing, moved it up, said financing available, click here, and the click-through rate, they're financing stuff now at an unbelievable rate. And that thing, I guarantee probably by the end of the year, they'll double their business just by moving that up and just having one page that simply says, here's how you get financing and click on this. It's amazing how simple little changes like that can actually work. That's a great example. And Google Analytics is really good for most people, that they can use their process there and get some really good insight. But you got to spend a little bit of time digging in, seeing what the data means, and that's a perfect example. Yeah.
And then taking some action on it, and then see what happens. Mm-hmm. There's some other interesting resources out there like ClickTail, where you can actually it records what happens when someone hits your site. And then you take an aggregate of that. So they'll show you literally as they scroll through, like what do they click on, where they stop, and so forth. And then there's other ones that are more like heat map kind of things, where you can see where people's focus is. And so you start adding tools like that, and you start getting a better picture of what's going on, and you combine that with good copy and just good process, and then of course some innovative thinking, and you can start start building your business out for sure.
I could go on for hours with this. I'm Rain Manish about numbers, so it's I won't bore people with that side of it. One thing that I do want to talk about is your X Factor 8, which is what's next. It's leading customers by the hand, and you kind of talked about it a little earlier. And I'm quite convinced, and I don't mean this in a mean way to anyone who's a client or a customer of mine or anybody's, is that people need to be spoon-fed, and you just do. What I found is if you just do it for them, it takes the headache off their plate. What's your take on that? What do you where do you go with that sort of stuff?
Well, so there's a lot of ways of looking at what's next. I mean, one of the biggest things is most businesses never really think about. They think about getting that first sale, and that's all they focus on. And then they're like, "Oh, great, we got that customer. Now let's go get some more." And they don't think about how can they use the relationship that they're building now with this customer, who hopefully likes them, trusts them, respects them, to continue to get more profit from them by delivering more value. I mean, that's one of that goes without saying. I mean, one of my core values is that we get rich by enriching others 10 times to 100 times what they pay us in return. So that means they have to deliver exceptional value, but it becomes easier to sell that customer. And so you have to, you can think of it in any way that you like and make sense to you. Like if you want to think of it as a curriculum, look at our school system, grade 1 through 12. okay, here's where I go next.
Yeah.
You can think about your business like that, and giving customers levels that they can move up to. You can think of it as a way that they get to choose their own adventure, maybe by choosing their avatar. Like I have a friend of mine who's done really, really well, where she'll be selling in a seminar environment, and she'll say, okay, here's the 3 paths that we have for our customers. And one is like, she calls them names like Startup Sally, and the other one is, I don't know, like Doing Well Debbie or something like that. And the other one is like, I don't know, Superstar Sam or something. I can't remember, but there's a beginner, medium, and a really high level business owner. So then they know which path they should take. And so that's one way of doing it. But be thinking about how to make it more interesting, and what's next for your customers is really important. And you can use elements like, holidays or different things if you want to, where, retailers have done this forever. You can use made up stuff. Like I've done promotions where it's been like Save Yaniks marriage sale, and just having a reason why we have certain things going on. And that's a big deal there, is that reason why. We touched on that a little bit before with the dentist example, creating that reason why. If people haven't read the book, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini, it's my favorite books. And in there, it talks a lot about these psychological hot buttons and triggers that you can use.
A couple of quick ones here too. So you go into mastermind groups as well. I'm sure people out there, some people go, what is a mastermind group? Give us your take on that.
Yeah, well, I'm a big believer in small peer-to-peer groups where nobody really has a dog in the fight, I guess, and they can give you real advice, and that you can also share resources, and everybody can grow. So, a lot of times the entrepreneur is a somewhat lonely individual because it's hard to talk to your team about stuff that might be keeping you up at night if you're trying to make payroll, if you're trying to worry about a competitor. And so for me, I've gotten a lot of I've moved forward on so many different areas by having a great peer group of other entrepreneurs who are going through what I'm going through at the process. And, many times you can't, if you're a startup, it's going to be really hard to have the same stuff going on. If you got entrepreneurs in the room that are $50 million companies, they're going through different stuff. So you want to use those people if you can as mentors and sounding boards and advisory if you can, but they're not going to be typically part of your mastermind group or your peer-to-peer group or your roundtable group or your forum. Typically, you'll end up with companies that are roughly the same size, going through roughly the same thing as you, and that you can very confidentially and objectively go through what's going on in your business. And I get the most out of our groups where literally it's just like, hey, what's working well, so everybody shares what's working well that everybody can learn from. And then it's like, hey, here's an opportunity or a problem that I have, and then it's a group brainstorming around that. So it's a very simple kind of format. And I've been in different groups where they're paid, where they're free. A lot of times the free ones don't end up working because not many people they don't have as big a commitment to it. But these small groups have been around for forever, really since the beginning of time, and its collaborative nature, I think, is even stronger today that we really want to tap into.
There, you know what? I got to get into one. I'm not in one. Yeah. I'm a mastermind of my own, I guess. I ask myself questions all the time. Look in the mirror. Hey, a couple of quick things before we're coming close to the end of this, but. You mentioned it earlier. You don't have to be technologically literate to really do what you're doing. And I just want you to kind of just explain to people that, how, if you don't mind, just really quickly, how you go about just doing some of the stuff that you do. You create and get it done. I've got my own process. I use Elance for getting things done a lot of times and stuff like that. But I don't know if you've got any couple of tips you might be able to help people with.
Yeah, sure. Well, so right now we have a tech guy who's on retainer with our companies, but he's more of like the plumbing side and making sure everything's working right, and can handle processes around the servers and mail and all those things that we need. But if we need to build something out that is pretty technical, that's software based, or it's to do some custom developing, I will do, like so you said, Chris. I'll go to Elance, or I'll go to I dropped out of Elance for a long time and came back and really think the quality has gone up. There's other sites like Odesk and Rent-A-Coder, which I forgot what their new name is, but it's like VWorker or something like that. But those sites are really, really great out there, who can do a lot of things. So I'm looking at, almost like the best of both worlds, where there's tools out there that are plug and play kind of tools that we can use. Like, so many sites right now are built on WordPress, and you can do a lot with WordPress that you wouldn't even imagine many times. And WordPress is a pretty simple, basic platform that if you need technical help, there's so many people that know how to do some stuff around it. And you can also do a lot of your own stuff. Like, so for our blog or whatever, I can add my own content, which is nice. But beyond that, I can't really do too much more. And then like some of the other sort of technical, but more, I guess, aesthetic stuff like design. Like, there's so many great crowd source resources out there, like 99 Designs or CrowdSpring, or a couple others out there that you can put out a project. Like, we'll do we want to get a lot of nice looking stuff out there, and we'll put contests out there. And the way the contests work is you decide that you're going to pay X amount of money, and you'll typically get 50 designs for a logo, 100 designs for a web page, whatever it is. You pick the best ones, you can give them feedback, and then you hand them the money once they win the contest. So then we'll give it to somebody who's more technical, who can code that page for us.
Good little tips you got there.
Pretty smart
Now,
stuff.
I would be remiss if I did not ask you these, and we'll get into if there's any audience questions, but I would be remiss if I did not ask you about number 10 and number 11, which is create the fun and create the impact. So obviously enjoying what you do, but also giving back. And I've given you your platform to talk about giving back, because you do a lot of good stuff, and especially if you go to your blog, you can see where you got links through to a lot of great charities and stuff like that. So please give us some thoughts on that.
Yeah, so it's interesting, and I used to call it that exact same thing. I used to call it giving back for a long time, and I'm I trained as a copywriter, so now I've really started calling it giving forward or creating impact, because giving back implies that we as entrepreneurs have taken something. And I think that's so completely untrue, that entrepreneurs, their only way that we can create wealth for ourselves or people around us is by creating value. So I've stopped using giving back if possible, and then just around giving forward. And I firmly believe, so that diagram that's on the back of the book is those 3 interconnecting circles. And I really think that literally the more happiness that you have in your life, the more joy and fun that you create, the more money you can actually create for yourself, and the more impact that you're creating, the more money and wealth you're going to create for yourself. And most times when people are only focused on that one aspect of the money, then they're running around, as one of my friends, Tony Hsieh, the CEO of Zappa, says. He quotes, I think, Notorious B.I.G. saying, "Don't chase the paper, the dollar bills," and that's exactly what happens. So by having this an opportunity to create impact, the thing that gets me so excited about most startups right now is, especially for young entrepreneurs, is that there's this level of social enterprise or consciousness involved in what they're doing. Like Tom's Shoes is a great example of it, where they buy a pair of shoes and you give a pair away to a child in need. And to me, that's like one of the best, obviously a lot of impact there, which is awesome, but it's also a great marketing platform, because now customers are spreading that story and they don't have to pay for advertising. They got partnerships that they would never have gotten because they have that platform that they're delivering. Now, I totally believe Blake did it for the right reasons, not for the marketing that goes along with it, but it becomes this massive turbo boost to what you're doing. So if you can incorporate that in a genuine, authentic way, it just blows up your business. One of the things that we're doing is, I announced it at my big once-a-year underground seminar that we do, is all our educational initiatives. We're going to now start doing 3-for-1 scholarships, where we're going to give away scholarships. So if a business owner pays for a training course, we're going to give away scholarships for young entrepreneurs, people with disabilities, and returning military vets. So now, we're going to hopefully create this massive pool of talented people that are educated and ramp up their own value to their community or to businesses that they want to serve, or their own ventures. And so I'm really, really excited about that. And there's so many ways of getting involved and having great impact. that can also help your business. Like, so, for me, it's always been, it has to be about something that's genuine and authentic to your brand or yourself personally. So, me and my friend might do a fallathon where we raise $30,000 falling out of an airplane at 30,000 feet, doing a halo skydive. So that was like one of my favorites instead of a walkathon that we did. And, because I'm a bit of an adventure junkie, and so that really fit in with what I was doing, and it was a fun thing to do, and it helped a lot of people. So, I think if you can incorporate that in a way that makes sense is great, and it certainly ties hand in hand with what you said, number 10, X factor number 10, about having fun. And you were reading off before part of my life list, and I always suggest people take out, create that ultimate life list and just see what you can do, and that also affects what you're doing in your business. Creating more fun for your business. Like, we always, like, for our events or anything we put on, it's never just an educational event. We try and really make it an experience. And I think that's what's really lacking today in a lot of businesses, is they're not delivering a true experience for their customers, and something that creates that joy and fun and instigates a little bit of chaos and mischief.
Awesome. It's creating fun. I absolutely agree. And is, also when you're working, if you're spending basically half of your day working somewhere and the other half, with family, and then third, I guess, sleeping. So you may as well have a good environment. You may as well have a fun place to work. That's just the way to go. Kirsten, did we get any questions in?
Yeah, actually, a few interesting ones here. First of all, question about what is your feeling about strategic partnerships? And I guess that's alliances with other entrepreneurs.
I love partnerships. I was literally striking 2 yesterday on the phone that I think are going to blow up what we're doing. One is with a online learning provider that has an amazing user interface and just a great platform. And like, instead of me rebuilding everything from scratch, what they're doing, I would much rather have them developing what they're great at and have me focused on what I'm really good at. And for that, it's, putting the ideas out there. And so the partnerships are definitely something that I'm a big fan of. You got to just be careful that things are spelled out, and that that you can get out of them if need be, or that each person, that there's certain expectations, and that the expectations are met. So if it's a rev share kind of thing, then you got to be really cognizant about, is one partner going to be delivering more of the work than the other partner? And pretty soon those relationships can sour if it feels like that. If like the one I'm talking about, where it's more of a platform and a service kind of platform, then it's a lot easier to do then, because there's no real, it's up to us to make it happen. It's not up to them to market our educational piece.
Great answer. I have another question here in the chat room from Kevin. I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur focusing on leveraging the power of the internet to get my message out to the world. What would be your top 3 pieces of advice for someone new to entrepreneurship?
It goes back to X factor number 1, is creating that unique hook or angle or big idea. Depending on what your message is that you want to get out there and leverage, the internet is absolutely one of the best ways to leverage your message, but it's got to be a message that's worth hearing by people. It's got to be something that has, you have to have a unique spin on something, or it has to be targeted towards a very specific niche or marketplace then. But if it's I have no idea what this gentleman does, but let's just say it's a very traditional, maybe like I look at, I don't know, like I work with different people and they're in the maybe health and fitness space. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, what's different about what you're doing than anybody else right now that's already an incumbent in that space? So they have to have their own unique take on it. And once they do, then you really can start using the power of the internet to start leveraging what you're doing.
Excellent. One other question here. I wrote it down over here. What's the story with Richard Branson and spaceflight?
What's the story with it? Well, ever since I was a kid, I've always wanted to go into space, so that's on my ultimate life list. And so when when the X Prize was won, which is a $10 million prize for the first ship that could go into space for twice in 2 weeks, I was really excited. And Richard Branson, he licensed that technology. And I've always been a huge Richard Branson fan. He's one of my biggest entrepreneurial heroes. And I've been fortunate now to spend about, I don't know, over probably 4 weeks with him over the course of some time on Necker Island, on his private island. So I've gotten to know him now, which has been amazing. Where looking back when I was just getting going, and he was one of my heroes, and never thought that was going to happen. So I signed up for Virgin Galactic, I don't know, 2008 maybe, something like that. And so I'm number 144 on the list to go up into space. So I'm excited,
nice.
And it's getting closer and closer. I really feel like 2013 they're going to put their first ship up there, and I've calculated if all things go right that I would be like 6 months after the first one, unless I can convince Richard to move me up somehow. Which I don't think that's going to happen.
Wow. You get to scratch that off your big list here. I'm looking here about something about going into space.
Can't scratch it off till I go.
That'd be awesome. Oh yeah, we just got off. Hey, we usually end the show. I don't know. Are there any other questions?
We have a few minutes left, and I'm sorry if I don't get to your questions.
I want to ask the one question that I always ask guys when we have them on the show is, what is the best piece of advice that you can give, in this case, an entrepreneur?
Oh, that's I don't know. I mean, I guess the best piece of advice is kind of counterintuitive to what we talked about in the X Factor number 2, which is having that vision, right? So we've created the vision. We think we know where we're going, but the truth is, you don't always have that clear path of how I'm going to A, B, C, D, how I'm going to move to all the way to Z. Now you got that big picture, and that really stems from kind of like your core values and what you really want to accomplish and who you want to be a hero to and what you want to over deliver on. But the very specific sort of A, B, C, D kind of steps are going to be a zigzag for you. And a lot of times I think about it like if you're in a really big, thick pea soup kind of fog, and you can only see 200 feet ahead of you, well, you're going to go those 200 feet, and then you're going to see what the next 200 feet look like. So instead of always trying to figure out exactly what each step is going to be, just get going, and then that path is going to open up to you.
That's very, very awesome information and a great tip. I'm a firm believer in that. Is just one foot in the other and just start going in a direction, and things start to happen for a reason. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. Things start to happen, and like this kind of joint venture that I put together yesterday. We started building out our educational piece, and I've been looking at online platforms, and I didn't really like any of them, and they didn't do anything. I'm like, I really love this one, and I kept showing it to people that we were working with. Mm-hmm. And I knew one of my friends had a connection to the developer or the founder of it. I'm like, hook me up with him. And I, just on the phone, we started talking. I told him how much I was impressed with their platform. He's like, yeah, we're looking at private labeling it. I'm like, oh, done.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
When you get ready to launch that, you can always call us back. We'll have you back on the show, and you can
Absolutely.
talk about it, right?
It'd be great.
Yeah. So we're at the top of the hour, basically. So we unfortunately we probably didn't get to all the questions.
Yeah, there's a couple that we have to miss. But I tell you what, this is going to be a recorded broadcast as well. So if you do have any questions in the recorded version and you'd like to leave those, please post those in the question form to the right, and we will definitely forward those to Yanik and his team. And likewise, please let others know about our interviews with Yanik. You'll be able to follow along bits and pieces with commentary on Chris's online blog at salestipaday.com. Chris, it'll be probably a few weeks before you get to these ones. He's got a backlog of,
like you wouldn't believe.
This is great to blog about, because he'll cut this interview up into little pieces and comment and send links, and it'll be a great way to follow up as well, or let people know about this entire interview here on netcastevent.com. Thanks, Yanik. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Yanik, really appreciate you having on the show today. Give us a couple of minutes after we just end, and we'll just have a quick wrap-up session with you if you don't mind.
You betcha.
But greatly appreciate it. I'm going to hold the book up one more time. Maverick Startup, 11 X Factors to Bootstrap from Zero to Six Figures and Beyond. Yanik Silver.
Yep, you can order the book on the website as well. There's a link to the bottom here of the pre-recording. So, cheers.
All right. Thanks, guys.